We're very pleased to have one of our own, Keith Kiefer from Minnesota 6. And Keith is not only a chapter leader, but he's also been a delegate. But also, he is the head of a national organization as commander, vice commander of the Atomic Veterans. And, so he's one of us who's taken a national leadership position, in support of gaining fair medical recognition and treatment for those who have served in the armed forces, but have been impacted and infected by radioactive poisoning, whether or not it was a military cleanup operation, whether or not it was testing on that. And Keith has been tireless in walking the halls of Congress. We have supported the legislation, that he has been pushing for years. Some of it has gotten enacted. And I do want you to meet this great individual, this great patriot who's doing great things to help our veterans who have been poisoned by radioactivity. Keith?
Thank you. Thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank AMAC for the opportunity to let you know a little bit about the Atomic Veterans of NAV. I wear many hats. One of them, I have the honor of being a delegate, Minnesota 6 for AMAC. Another one of the hats that I wear, that I have the honor of being the national commander of National Association of Atomic Veterans. So I hope to cover several topics here. Who and what NAV is, who and what an atomic veteran is, and what NAV's been doing. NAV is an all-volunteer organization, no paid positions. We help the veterans, their spouses, with making claims and navigating some of the bureaucracy. We contact legislators, make them aware of various legislations, issues that the veterans are having. So usually when I ask people about atomic veterans, I get the deer in the headlights look. So does anybody here other than John and Bob know what an atomic veteran is? What do you think an atomic veteran is? Very good, very good, very good. So, so anyhow, it depends on who you ask what the definition of atomic veteran is. The VA has one definition, the Justice Department has another definition, and NAV has probably the broadest definition of atomic veteran. The VA has a list of number of tests that took place between 1945 to 1962. And also the occupying forces of Hiroshima and Nagasaki are included in that group of those considered atomic veterans. The Justice Department has even a narrower definition. They consider atomic veterans on-site participants. They do not include the veterans that were part of the occupying force of Hiroshima or Nagasaki in their definition. NAV considers anybody that had the potential or was exposed to ionization radiation as an atomic veteran. We even include the individuals that handle depleted uranium. Some examples of atomic veterans. The veterans that participated in atomic testing from 1945 to 1963, there was, we have a very difficult time getting any information from the government. Much of the information is still considered classified. We believe that there was, up until 2 years ago, We believe that there was 250 to 350,000 veterans that is in this first group that I talked about. When the DOD tried to pacify us with giving us a certificate of participation for that particular group of veterans, that's when we learned that it's upwards of 550,000 veterans that were involved with the testing. In Wetuck Atoll, that took place between 1977 to 1980. I happen to be one of those particular veterans. In Wetuck Atoll is one of the test sites that they tested 43 nuclear weapons. And our mission was to go in there, and the particular islanders were removed off of their native islands and rehomed on different islands. Our mission was to go in there and try and reclimate the islands, make it to where it was no longer radioactive and it was safe for the islanders to return to their native islands. I was involved with that particular one. Palomar, Spain is one of the Broken Arrow operations. Broken Arrow operation is where there's been an incident with a nuclear weapon. In 1966, over Palomar, Spain, there was a B-52 and a KC-135 plane. The two planes collided. 4 of the nuclear weapons were dispensed. 2 of them went into the ocean. Took them a long time to find one of the ones that went in the ocean. 2 of the others hit the ground, broke open, and scattered plutonium and other radioactive elements over it. There was approximately 1,600 veterans that were involved with that operation. They ended up going over there and scraping up topsoil and putting it in 55-gallon drums. Back to the Inuvik Atoll, that was a joint task operation. There was approximately 8,000 individuals involved with that, of which a little over 4,000 veterans were involved with that. Right now, we can only find approximately 300 of the guys alive today. And Palomar, Spain, there's about 5 guys that we can find alive that were involved with that. I mentioned about depleted uranium. We have no idea what the number of individuals that have been exposed to the depleted uranium. Fukushima is our latest group that we've added as atomic veterans. Many people don't know that we had approximately 100,000 veterans that were involved with humanitarian efforts when Fukushima power plant went up. And the VA actually admits that those particular veterans were exposed to low-dose ionization radiation. Many of them are already showing up at the VA with healthcare issues. AMAC has been very supportive in the various legislative issues that we've been trying to get passed. Back approximately 10 years ago, I approached Parker Erickson, who worked for Bob Carlson here. And I said, what do you think about the possibility of creating a partnership of pursuing this legislation? He approached Dan. Dan was just over the top enthusiastic about this. And it's been a great partnership ever since then. We've been trying to get an Atomic Veteran Service Medal for 40 years. We ended up just last year in December, finally got a law passed. They haven't created the medal yet. They're still working on trying to figure out who qualifies for it. Then they'll end up designing a medal, producing it, and putting together a program to be able to distribute that to them. What's NAB been doing? We're educating the public about this. It's probably one of the best known secrets out there. The particular veterans that were involved with this, I'm talking about the first group, 1945 to 1962, they ended up, were under an oath of secrecy until 1996, that they couldn't talk about their experiences with their family members, even their doctor when they had health issues. Many of them ended up going to their grave, not being able to share with their doctors about that, under the fear of being incarcerated or having fines or both. In 1995, under Bill Clinton, there was a human radiation experiments commission that disclosed some of the things that went on with not only the nuclear programs, but other situations where they were injecting individuals with radioactive elements to see what happens. The particular group from 1945 to 1962, they ended up, were just moments after an atomic bomb was set off, ordered to get out of the trenches and march to ground zero. They didn't have any protective equipment. They'd come back covered with dust from the fallout, and they'd use brooms and just brush each other off, often just outside of the Quonset hut, which they were sleeping in. And that radioactive dust just sat outside of their Quonset hut, where they could get recontaminated as they resuspended that particular dust. We help veterans and their dependents with claims and other needs. We promote federal and state legislation. This is some of the federal legislation. I'd ask all the delegates here if you could contact your congressman and your 2 state senators to support these particular bills. These are 5 of the bills that we're trying to get through right now. We just recently ended up having a success with the PACT Act. The Senate ended up finally coming to an agreement on that. They're going to waive pay-go. Now, interesting enough, pay-go is a situation where when they bring a new, the way it's supposed to work is when they bring a new program in, they end up having to offset the cost of that program with another one. They always apply this to the veterans, but when it comes to many of the other pet programs, they waive pay-go. For the first time, this PACT Act, which covers toxic elements, it covers the veterans that were involved with burn pits. It covers veterans that were wound up getting contaminated water. In this also, the language for the Mark Takai bill and the Palomar Veterans Act is included in that. So if we can get that passed through the Senate and the House, we'll wind up having those 2 checked off. Right now, the VA does not recognize the Inuitak cleanup veterans as atomic veterans, so they don't qualify for the VA benefits. Neither do they qualify for the Radiation Exposure Compensation Act. Same thing with the Palomar Spain veterans. Cost of War Act, that's PACT Act. That's what they're calling the bill in the House. So we need to get that passed also. Can we see about starting a little video here?
I met a fellow one day wearing an atomic veteran's cap, and I asked him, what the heck is an atomic veteran? And I was one, and I didn't even know it.
And I see you were a sergeant, but were you in the service? It says atomic veteran. I said, well, yeah, that's what we're talking about, atomic veteran. I was a veteran of the bomb.
Atomic veteran, what's that? And I'll say, well, I was involved with the testing of atomic bombs. Where? When? You know, they don't know. They never knew that we tested atomic bombs.
I have seen the dragon. Through clenched lids and arms pressed tight, I have felt its hot breath on my back and listened to the rumble of its voice. I have looked upon its breath, glowing amethyst, red and purple, climbing toward the stratosphere to deposit its venom downwind. I have waited in fear as my gums began to bleed and my hair came out in clumps as I began to heal. I breathed a prayer of thanks. After 50 years, our ranks are thin. We who have seen the dragon and survived. Those who have died or are sickened still, their numbers are legion. All we can hope for, work for, pray for, is that no madman will ever be allowed to unleash the dragon again. For its legacy to all is death, disease, and decay. And I wrote that on 2nd November 2006.
So in the Navy and see the world, but I didn't get to see too much of the world, but I did see a lot of the atomic tests.
I worked for my uncle, and he had a pocket knife on the banister, and I was sitting there in the doorway whittling out me a new slingshot. And all of a sudden, a cop taps me on the back. He said, "Come on, you're going to jail because you stole your uncle's pocket knife."
I joined the Navy with the promise of schooling. They sent me for school at the Coronado Amphib Base and taught me how to drive landing craft, so that was the extent of my schooling.
So I got up the next morning and went in front of the judge. The judge told me, he said, "Well, you got two choices. You can either spend 3 years in juvenile, or you can go in service for 3 years." So I stood there for a few minutes and I said, "Well, I'll go in service." And they said, "Well, will your parents sign the paper for you to go?" And I said, "No, they won't." He said, "Well, I don't need them anyway, so you're in service."
They never told us what we were there for. And I didn't know what an atomic bomb was. I didn't know what radiation was.
First told us about Red Wing when we were actually on our way. We know that we're going to take part in these atomic tests, but we really don't know what they are.
I was 19 years of age, and we were stationed in Hawaii. I was in the Navy, and they told us we were cleared for a very special clearance for top secret, which made us all feel good. And we found ourselves at the nuclear test sites at Christmas Island, and that was in 1962. After several of the blasts, as we were steaming away from the island, I can remember myself saying, "We've got to have a clean bomb. My government would not do this to me." And I found out, yes, they would. And they did.
And I signed that piece of paper that I absolutely will not tell no one about this, not even my wife, or not even my mother, or anyone. If I did, they would hunt me down.
We were told that we broke our secrecy oath, we could be tried for treason. So I never told my girlfriend. She asked me where we were going. I said, "I can't tell you." When we got to Pearl Harbor, I got a letter from her, and it had a clipping out of the newspaper in San Diego Union Tribune, and it told the names of all the ships, how many people, where we were going, what we were going to do.
We were being prepared to go to war, and we were going to have to be subjected to, we thought, atomic warfare.
And we got in the trenches about 5:30 in the morning. I get my gas mask on, I grab my helmet, and by then it's like 1. And I get my helmet halfway up in my head, and it was 0, and the blast went off. And then the all clear was sound, and we got out of the trench, stood there, and you watched the mushroom cloud form. And you could see it sucking the raw dirt up. It was like you felt like you could reach out and touch it. It was so close. Until it actually literally blotted the sun out, and you were really literally standing in the shadow of that cloud.
They were simply human guinea pigs is what they were.
They should have told me, "Well, you're going to have a hell of a life from now on. Your teeth are going to fall out. You're going to have cancer operations, but we're not going to take care of you anymore."
And I'm absolutely sure that most of the problems that I'm having today And I've had, down through these years, was because of the radiation from the bomb shops. I've applied to the VA for the presumptive causes, but we always get there's not enough evidence there, or the law won't let us compensate you for this, and we don't think you have enough radiation in your body.
Yeah, I'd like to see the atomic veterans get recognition and compensation for the time that we've lost.
The Radiation Exposure Compensation Act, it was slated to expire here on July 10th, 11th, depending on who you talk, of this year. We managed to just recently get some legislation passed. They're kind of kicking the can down the road to see about having that program extended another 2 years. That particular program came into existence in 1990, and over its 32-year spans, the whole program has cost $2.5 billion. Now that sounds like a lot of money, but when you put it in perspective, we spend $50 billion a year maintaining and upgrading our nuclear weapons. So it's a drop in the bucket compared to what we spend on other things. I'm gonna just there's a number of local things that we handle. My wife doesn't even know this. I got notified while we're here that we just wound up getting in Missouri, an Atomic Veteran Memorial Highway added. That's one of the things we wind up doing on a state level. I also while I was here was contacted, and American Legion wants to do an article on the PACT Act. So I'm going to show you some of the protective gear that we used. This is one of the craters that we transported 110,000 cubic yards of contaminated material and debris and deposited it in. Later you'll see, here's what the guys were wearing handling the contaminated material. This is that particular crater, a cactus crater filled in with 110,000 cubic yards. We then proceeded to put 18 inches of concrete, which was made with contaminated soil, on top of that. This is what they call ruined dome. See, that's about the best you got is a painter's mask and some rubber booties. That was the maximum we had in terms of protective gear. Here's the dome getting near completion. That's what the dome looks like today. That particular dome is still radioactive. One of the elements that's in there is plutonium. It has a half-life of 10,400 years. This is what it looks like from Google Maps. So I won't. That was in the Marshall Islands, that Inuiatak Atoll in the Marshall Islands, South Pacific.
Thank you very much. Isn't that absolutely unbelievable that this travesty has been still perpetuated, and Keith and your colleagues in the National Association of Atomic Veterans, we're with you. We'll work with you as we have been and continue to support the enactment of this legislation to correct this very, very tragic and awful behavior, by the government. To me, it was just absolutely unconscionable. So thank you very much.